Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the School for Therapy. My name is Zoe. I'm a licensed therapist and a content creator that loves to have the therapy and mental health related conversations that we are not having as a society. And today we need to talk about BetterHelp. And this is not an ad. Okay, this is not an ad. If you frequent the internet and social media at all, or just like don't live under a rock, you have probably seen so many ads about BetterHelp just everywhere. BetterHelp has like taken over Google AdSense, truly. BetterHelp is supposed to be the online therapy platform that makes therapy more affordable and convenient. However, there has always been something about BetterHelp that has rubbed me the wrong way, and I finally figured out what it is. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely feel like therapy should be more convenient and more affordable. And let me also say that this critique is not just for BetterHelp, it's also for Talkspace and online therapy platforms that I have dubbed as assembly line therapy. Now, what is assembly line therapy, you might ask? This is a term that I have coined that describes platforms such as BetterHelp and Talkspace that provides this on-demand therapy in the form of therapy via messaging and chat rooms. Now, don't get me wrong, like Talkspace and BetterHelp both have an online video therapy platform as well, but their clients and therapists can also do therapy via messages. And therapy is not supposed to be done this way. This isn't how it's supposed to work. We'll get there though. Call me old school, but I just do not believe that effective therapy can take place in a chat room. Now, again, therapy via a video or Zoom or whatever the case may be, it's fine. I still don't believe that virtual therapy or video therapy is as effective as in-person face-to-face therapy, but in the digital modern age that we're living in, it is fair for people to want to see their therapist through a screen because people got things going on, right? I understand the convenience of it all. However, when you're talking to a therapist in a chat room or via some sort of text message, your therapist isn't able to see your face. They're not able to hear your voice. And these are elements of the therapeutic experience that can communicate to your therapist other things that may be going on that the client isn't communicating directly. As an example, if a client is messaging me on a chat in a chat room, I don't know if they're like crying or not on the other end of that. You know what I'm saying? But if I saw a client either face to face or virtually and I see that they're crying, I would say, what's going on, right? How are you feeling right now? I see you're very emotional, but I don't know what the emotions are via text. I mean, this is the same reason why people in healthy relationships don't argue over text. Like, this is the same reason that they pick up the phone and have a conversation or decide to have that conversation in person, because so much can get lost in translation when you are talking over text. And so therapy is just not going to be incredibly effective in this assembly line, chat room, text message type of way. And then people wonder why they aren't having good experiences. We'll get there too. Now, the pandemic has caused a rise in virtual online services, right? There has definitely been a transition, and therapy has been no different. In fact, like, virtual therapy has skyrocketed since the pandemic. There are therapists now that do not see people in person. They only do virtual therapy. And listen, I partake in the rise of this virtual, data-driven digital age reality of convenience in receiving the services that we are looking for. A big example for me is food delivery. I don't even want to know how much money I have spent on Uber Eats in the last year. I don't even want to know. I know it's ridiculous. However, I find that when I have my food delivered to me, like, it's not as fresh, right? Like, the quality isn't there, or the order is messed up, or the delivery driver just completely gets my order wrong and mixes it up with somebody else. Like, it's always something when I'm having my food delivered. And here recently, I've just realized, you know what? it's better for me to just get off my ass and go to Chipotle in person and make sure that I'm getting exactly what I want and making sure that I'm getting the freshest ingredients that I can, right? And so with this convenience, it also comes with like a dilution in the quality of the food that I'm receiving. And I think that assembly line therapy is the same way. It's the same way. With this style of therapy, you automatically decrease the quality of the services that you are receiving. Maybe the convenience is increased because you can just text your therapist whenever you want to, but the quality of that therapy is going to be very low. And these are things that clients don't understand, right? Now, to be fair, the reviews that I've seen about BetterHelp tend to be mixed. It seems like people either love it or hate it. There are reviews like this one where the disdain for BetterHelp is very obvious and very clear. Some common complaints of BetterHelp is the wait time to get matched with a therapist, which can seemingly take from like 1 hour to 1 week. And clients are still getting charged as they are waiting to see a therapist, which I don't think is fair. It's not cool. And BetterHelp clients have also mentioned that their therapist would take a long time to respond to a message and that they didn't like that either. And let's get into that a little bit more. Now, first of all, I can imagine that there are clients who are on BetterHelp that have shitty experiences with their therapist. And I think this may be for a few reasons. One is because shitty therapists exist, period. Okay, Editing Zoe here again. Since I filmed that video and have been talking about it on Instagram and like looking up videos on TikTok of people's experience with BetterHelp, I've also learned that like apparently BetterHelp don't even be having licensed therapists on their platform, which is a new level of crazy. Like, did they think that we wouldn't figure that out? That's wild. So just another reason to not use this platform. And honestly, I question whether or not a really good therapist is even going to hop on BetterHelp and work with them in the first place. Honestly, I understand getting paid. I understand having multiple streams of income, because there's no way anybody could convince me that being a BetterHelp therapist is the only stream of income that they have that is paying their bills. No, I refuse to believe it. How could you see that they're doing therapy via a message board and a chat room or whatever the case may be, and think that like things make sense over there? Let me stop. I could be wrong. Fight me in the comments. Do what you gotta do. Okay, Editing Zoe here. I recognize that I sound a little bit judgy in that clip, and I want to rephrase myself. I think you can be a good therapist and work for BetterHelp or Talkspace. I think you can be a good therapist and be naive. I think you can be a good therapist and miss the red flags. I think you can be a good therapist and not care about the red flags because you got bills to pay, right? Like, there is nuance. All of these things can be true at once, but I do think that it is fair to expect for therapists to reflect and to pay close attention to how these new teletherapy platforms are operating, and what they are expecting of you and of clients, and whether or not any of these expectations or systems that are put in place may be problematic or not. That's what I'll say. The other reason I think clients are having bad experiences with their BetterHelp therapists is because, like I said before, I believe that these therapists are using BetterHelp to supplement their income. BetterHelp is not their full-time job. So I would imagine if a therapist has a full-time job, right, and they're receiving these messages from their clients via BetterHelp, and they can't actually respond to it because they're working a full-time job, right, it's going to rub the client the wrong way. However, therapists cannot be in two places at once, especially doing the work that we do. I don't think people understand how much mental and emotional labor goes into being a therapist, and that like being in session and working with the client, and to do it well, it requires all of your attention. No distractions, none at all. You have to be all in. And so I would imagine, yeah, therapists are not providing effective therapy by responding to their clients between sessions at their full-time job. I don't even know how you provide effective therapy over a message, in a message. Some of the complaints were clients saying that like they pour their heart out to their therapist and write this essay about their feelings, and their therapist will respond with like a vague question. But like so much of what it means to be a therapist is asking our clients questions so that we can really get down to the root of what's going on, so that they can actually process. But that is a system that is supposed to be happening in real time, back and forth. It is supposed to be a conversation that you are having with the client so that it flows, right? But it can look like, what the fuck? I just gave you all of this and now you're just asking me a question, even though that's what therapists do. And it feels that way because you're not having a conversation with your therapist. I didn't see reviews like this for clients who were seeing their therapist via a video. And I think a lot of people want to like really take convenience far and want to be able to just like text their therapist and think that that's going to be effective. But it's like, that's not how therapy works. That's not how therapy works, unfortunately. A therapist cannot be effective via text message. I don't care what anybody says. You can fight me about it. A therapist cannot be effective in a chat room. No, I just refuse to believe it. Now, let's talk about the reviews that BetterHelp therapists or therapists who have worked for BetterHelp in the past have for working with the company. The first thing that came to mind for me was like, how much y'all getting paid? Because I think salary, pay, income, especially when it comes to even working with like a group private practice or platforms like this, therapists have historically been lowballed. It was just my assumption that therapists are getting lowballed at BetterHelp, and I was correct. Duh, of course. So I'm reading my notes. According to my research, BetterHelp does not have any information about their pay model on their website, which is like automatically a red flag for me. I don't like when companies don't have salary transparency because it feels like you just about this close to playing me if I let you. So that was already a red flag. However, BetterHelp does provide this like income scale that you can use and move back and forth based on how many hours a week you're going to work and how much money you can make. It says on here that if you work 40 hours a week, you can make $100,000 a year. Girl, nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. And in fact, based on the research that I did, I ain't seen not one therapist at BetterHelp making six figures. Not one. And also apparently BetterHelp doesn't pay for, you know, when you're doing administrative work. They don't pay for no-shows. I don't see how you can work 40 hours a week as a therapist, including the admin time and including no-shows, which always happen, not get paid for that at a minimum and still make $100,000 a year. The math it's just not mathing at all. I also saw that apparently BetterHelp has this engagement model for how they pay their therapists. So according to this model, basically the more the therapist engages with the client, this can be over a video call, in the chat rooms, or via message, the more money you make. So essentially, therapists are incentivized for not having any boundaries at BetterHelp. And here's the thing, because recently I saw a video on Instagram that a therapist made, and she was using a tweet that she saw where basically the person was like, I wish I could text my therapist. I'd be having thoughts and things all day. I wish I could just text them. And the therapist that was talking about it was like, what do y'all think? Should therapists be available via text? And it was a resounding no for every single therapist in the comment. And I also feel like this should just not even be a question that's entertained. I don't really understand why people want therapists to have no boundaries. I don't really understand why y'all just want to be able to click a button and talk to your therapist at any time of day. Now, on some level I do. right? I can't imagine, like, if you're in distress, if you are anxious, if you are struggling, right? Like, you want to be able to talk to somebody right then and there. But I need everybody to understand that therapists need to have lives outside of their job. And can you imagine? Can you imagine if you have a caseload of 30 people and they could contact you at any time? Oh my God, we would never be off. We would never be off. And so it's quite absurd. But back to BetterHelp, my issue is, like, any therapist, any good therapist understands that there have to be lines drawn in the sand for us. There has to be boundaries, and that we cannot just be working all the time. And so if the incentive to make more money is to work more, how is that good for the quality of life and the well-being of your therapist? It's giving you don't care about your therapist. That's the way I feel about it. And so these therapists are pressured to engage, to schedule more sessions, to reply to messages more often, to be on as often as possible. And that's not sustainable for anybody. It also, and I think one of my bigger issues with BetterHelp is that I feel like it's setting up non-therapists, like people that are receiving these services, for failure moving forward. Here's why I feel that way. One, expecting your therapist to be available via message or text or anything like that outside of y'all's therapy sessions, they don't do that in private practice. They don't do that outside of BetterHelp and platforms like it. So, and I find in my research that many people are using BetterHelp as like a stepping stone. It's like their entryway to therapy, right? So they're using BetterHelp because it's hard to find a therapist. It can be confusing. It can be intimidating. And then once they get a little comfortable and decide that they want to move off of this platform and find maybe a more permanent therapist, that's the move that they make, right? But I think that BetterHelp is conditioning people new to therapy to believe that it's normal to receive therapy in this way. So when they go to, I don't know, Susie at Private Practice P and are like, yeah, I like messaging for my sessions. Can I text you? And she's like, no, I don't do that. Then they're shocked. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, this is not how therapy should be introduced to somebody. It just isn't. The other reason I think they're setting up clients for failure is because it creates an emotional dependence on the therapist. Part of the reason therapists need to have boundaries is not just to protect ourselves, but it's also to facilitate in the growth of the client as well. I'll use me as an example. I recently had a client ask if she could see me more often, which would be more than once a week, and I told her no. And I said, because a couple of reasons. One is because during those 7 days, right, between our sessions, you're actually gonna have time to apply what I'm teaching you and to actually use the tools that you're learning in your real life, which is where change takes place, which is where healing takes place. Healing does not take place in the therapy session. Learning takes place in the therapy session, okay? So that's one. And two, so that they don't become dependent on me. My goal, if I had it my way, right, like my goal for therapy and mental health would be for like no one to need us ever again. Listen, that's my overarching goal. I want y'all to be good. I want y'all to have the tools that you need to take care of yourselves and to sustain your lives. That's the goal, right? But if I'm basically conditioning you to believe that you got to be here to be okay, who is that helping? That's not helpful. And I think that that's what can end up happening, right? When a company urges their therapist to constantly be present in the client's life to make some decent money. You catching my drift? You see what I'm saying? And so that's another reason, like it's not setting these clients up for success at all. And also that kind of engagement, it is a recipe for burnout. I wasn't able to find any numbers on the turnover rate at BetterHelp. Those numbers were not public. I wonder why. But I would imagine if a therapist starts working at BetterHelp and they feel confident that they can make six figures and they are doing everything that BetterHelp says that they need to do to make six figures, they are going to crash and burn. Crash and burn. It's not sustainable. And this line of work is too heavy to be working at that rate. It's just too much. Now, this brings me to my next point, because any actual licensed therapist would know that this is not the way to try to make therapy more affordable and accessible and convenient, okay? Any licensed therapist would know that this model of assembly line therapy is going to actually literally suck, okay? So it brings me to my next question of like, who founded BetterHelp? No way it's a therapist. I refuse to believe that. I just knew that there's no way that anybody that has actually done this work would set up this kind of service in this way. So I did some digging, and I found out that the founder of BetterHelp is a man named Alan Matas. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he is not a therapist. He is not a psychologist. He's not a psychiatrist. He is not in the mental health field at all. He's a businessman. BetterHelp is a tech company. It's not a mental health company. BetterHelp is a tech company. And girl, that is only the beginning of the information that I found. I also saw on Teladoc's website, Teladoc is like the umbrella company for BetterHelp and other companies, that Alan Matas, and I quote, was leading product development and strategy for startups, enterprises, and the Israeli Defense Forces, aka the IDF. Do what you want with that information. But furthermore, in my research, I found that BetterHelp has been in the news for selling its client data. Yes, girl. On the Federal Trade Commission's website, it says that BetterHelp used a wide variety of tactics to share the health information of over 7 million consumers with platforms like Facebook, Snapchat, Criteo, and Pinterest for the purpose of advertising. The Federal Trade Commission says BetterHelp disclosed to Facebook for advertising purposes the previous therapy of 1.5 million people who visited or used BetterHelp's website. But that's not all. BetterHelp broke its privacy promises by disclosing to Snapchat the IP and email addresses of approximately 5.6 million former visitors to target them with BetterHelp ads. Remember in the beginning of this video when I was like, it's like BetterHelp owns like AdSense. They're just everywhere. This is why. According to Behavioral Health Business, BetterHelp made $1 billion in 2022. $1 billion. And at the same time, it's paying its therapist $30 per video session. The lack of ethics is all in and around this company, truly. And again, it makes sense because an actual licensed therapist would understand the importance of paying their therapists fairly. They would understand the importance of making sure that therapists weren't set up to fail or to burn out. They will understand the importance of how therapy actually works and what is necessary for it to be effective. And they would have never done no shit like this. So it makes sense that this came from the brain of a businessman and someone who absolutely has no idea what he's doing in this space. But taking it so far as to break your own privacy policy and to share the confidential information of people who are already vulnerable, right? who are already struggling, who are already having a hard time and needing help, and coming to this company because they feel that it's a safe space. Like, exploiting the personal data and information of people in general, but specifically this population, is genuinely disgusting. It's disgusting. So apparently the Federal Trade Commission is set to charge BetterHelp $7.8 million as a fine for selling private user data. And you know, it's just so crazy because, like, if a therapist were to break confidentiality of a client, we could lose our entire license. And to someone like Alan Matas, who was probably rich before he even founded BetterHelp, and for a company like Teladoc, which is an entire corporation, like $7.8 million is not much of a consequence. It's really not. But like, if I were to lose my license, my world would stop for a moment. I would genuinely, I don't know how I would proceed forward and make money and like manage mentally and emotionally. And I just feel like, and I know that we know this, right? Like, this isn't new news, but I just feel like America just gives corporations a slap on the back and allows them to continue to do the fuck shit that they are inevitably going to do. BetterHelp needs to be taken down. And if we really want to talk about affordability and accessibility as it relates to mental health care, we need to be talking about the insurance companies. But we don't even have time to get into that, girl. That's gonna have to be another video, because platforms like BetterHelp and Talkspace are not the answer to fixing the gap in affordability and accessibility and convenience as it relates to receiving therapy. This is not the answer at all. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new, okay? And I definitely want to hear from y'all. Like, what do you think about this? Have you used BetterHelp? Are you a therapist that's been working on BetterHelp? What was your experience like? Were you a client on BetterHelp? What was your experience like? Please, please, please share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. If you are also like, I knew I had a bad feeling about that, you know, but now I see why. Let me know, girl, okay? It's not just you. You're not crazy. You're not alone. So that's it for this one, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.